Yeah. Hi all. Let's make a start. We may get more people drifting in, but thank you very much for coming. Conscious it's the end of the day, but it's lovely to see some familiar faces and some new faces. Do please come in and grab a seat. My name is Dan Crossley, Executive Director of the Food Ethics Council. We're a not-for-profit trying to accelerate the shift to food systems fair for people, animals and planet. We do a whole bunch of stuff, which I'm not going to go into now, but it includes one project, the Dairy Project, working with dairy farmers on how we can support them to transition to fairer, more ethical dairy. Today's discussion is not exclusively about dairy. I'm sure it will come up. But today's session is all about grounds for optimism. We're kind of repeating a session we ran at Groundswell last year because we had good feedback on it. So we thought we would replay it, but with a different set of speakers this time. And the simple question we're asking is, what excites you about farming at the moment? That's it. So what excites you about farming at the moment? What are the grounds for optimism? I should just say, my 30 seconds worth of, but I think it's important. This isn't a kind of us sort of with rose-tinted glasses thinking that everything out there is wonderful. I absolutely acknowledge the multiple emergencies we're facing, a lot of hurt, a lot of conflict at the moment, and there's natural disasters. The earthquake in Afghanistan killed 1,000 people in the last 24 hours, through to crisis in Ukraine, conflict in many parts of the world. We're not, and as well as the biodiversity emergency, climate emergency, obesity emergency, etc. You know about all these things, so we're not in any way kind of underplaying any of that. The reason for wanting to take, as I said, this grounds for optimism lens on things is very much my belief that we should do more of building on the positives, trying to understand where some of that kind of good energy, positive things are happening, and how can we do more of it. It's as simple as that. And again, simple to say, not always simple to do. But I'm going to shut up in a minute, and we're going to hear from our two speakers who are going to give kind of quite short, 6 minutes or so, presentation provocations, and then we're going to get most of the session will be, this is where you shift uncomfortably in your seats, we'll be talking to each other. So we're going to get you to do that whole move your chairs and sit in a circle thing. So yeah, you won't be able to sit quietly, but hopefully you'll get to meet some new people, share some stories, and then we'll feed back a bit at the end. And we'll finish promptly at 6:30, so you can either go home or have a drink in the bar. So I'm joined today by Rebecca Mayhew on my right and Martin Lyons. Many of you will know them. Rather than me read out their long biogs, perhaps just in 30 seconds, I'll ask each of them to introduce themselves and their kind of farming philosophy, if they have one, what they want to share, and then I'll come back and ask you in a minute what's exciting you. So maybe Rebecca first.
Yep. Lovely, thanks very much, Dan. Lovely to see you all here today. I, as Dan said, Rebecca Mayhew, we're from Old Hall Farm in Norfolk. We have undergone quite a huge change in our farming system over the last 5 years. We used to have indoor pigs, with all of the nasty connotations that has, intensive arable. We now have a cow and calf dairy. We are milking 44 jerseys. We have a regenerative farming model. We've undertaken holistic management training, and we sell food to people, not corporations, which is one of the most exciting things that we do on a daily basis. I farm with my husband. It's his family farm. I'm the daughter-in-law, so obviously that can be a little bit of a struggle at times, having too many bright ideas. What would I know about farming? I've been in it 5 minutes. So yeah, we have a very varied business. We also have a farm shop, butchery, deli, cafe, and a vineyard. In terms of enterprises, we still have some pigs, but they're rare breeds. As far as we can, we try and keep them off soya. There is the monogastric, so they still have some grain. We haven't quite perfected getting them outside. We have chickens for egg laying, obviously the dairy girls, goats for entertainment, largely, but also meat and skins. And I'm trying to work out what else I've forgotten. My daughter sat in the front row, so there's quite a lot of pressure to perform, other than as well having all of you here. So yeah, very varied business. There's even some sheep in there as well. And Isabel, you won't be surprised to hear that they all escaped today. We haven't got to ask your father to deal with him because he's at the bar at the minute. So that's all good. So it's a really interesting time to be involved in agriculture. I mean, we've undergone a huge change. The world is undergoing huge change, and we can't underestimate the effect that has on people. I do tell people that we're at the coalface of farming effectively, because we grow stuff and we sell it to people direct. There's no buffer between us and the customer. That can be really hard. It was hard in lockdown. People cried because we had milk, bread, eggs. When did we get to that stage? So there's lots of negatives that we can focus on. Being optimistic in this day and age, if you are a normal member of the public, just trying to work out what colour bin to put your rubbish in is really, really difficult, and people have a tendency to retreat into themselves because of what's happening in the world. So Dan asked us to have a short list of things that make us optimistic. So in my short list, which might spark some discussions, I've actually written down higher prices and higher costs, because I think only through having that external pressure can we really reevaluate what we're doing in farming. It's giving us a real incentive for that paradigm shift to happen. We, as you know, having just explained to you our farming story, we went through huge changes, and that was influenced by a number of factors. But I think in order for farming to change in the way that we all feel it should, I mean, you all here at Groundswell, you must feel that change is due and needed, then we do need these external factors. Public interest in food has never been higher. Lockdown brought that home to a lot of people. Food security, really important. What's going on in the Ukraine is putting food at the top of the agenda for discussion with most people on a daily basis, which we've never had, really, not in my generation. It was just a given that there would be things in shops to buy and to eat, and there was none of that pressure at all. So that's one of my reasons for optimism is higher prices, because I think we will then have to try and evaluate far more how we keep some of that increased price, and hopefully with food being more expensive, people will waste less. That is one of my huge hopes. Hopefully it'll be the end to food dictatorship as well. I'm hoping that there'll be more engagement with the public and farmers about what we grow and how we do it. There is a huge divide between those two areas. Most people think that farming is done very differently to how it is, and I think actually, whilst I'm not being critical of anyone who farms differently to how we do, we all do what we can with what we've got. I think that public perception and the ethics of how our food is produced is very, very different. And my other area for optimism is people. Yourselves, you're all here, you're interested in making a change and being the difference, which is what we need, and it's that putting it out there on social media, which really makes a big difference as well. So I think people, and they're interested in food and farming and what's going on sort of outside of their own houses is really important. But telling stories is fantastically important, and now is the time really to capitalise on you and your stories and what you do for people, whether they know you do it or not. So those very briefly are my grounds for optimism.
Brilliant, thank you, and thank you for keeping it brief as well. Loads in there, I won't repeat all that, but I think there's lots of that to unpick and explore, and I want to hear if you've got similar themes and you might challenge some of that, you might agree with it, but I kind of want to hear your stories in a few moments. But first of all, before we do that, I want to hand over to Martin. Again, if you could briefly introduce yourself, Martin, and then share what is exciting you at the moment.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good afternoon. So my name is Martin Lyons. I'm a farmer in Cambridgeshire. In theory, in the old school, I was an arable farmer, but I see myself very much as a mixed farmer, reintroducing livestock, farming, biodiversity, worms, and everything else in my landscape. It's all part of a whole farmed approach. And we've been in stewardship for over 20 years and waiting to enter into the new schemes, and actually seeing nature as the heart of my farming system, and how does nature add production and profitability, and really it gives me free gifts. And that's why we've been putting that into the heart of our system. And at home we're redesigning our farm landscape to put margins in every 9 to 120 metres. We have a 30-metre fertiliser spreader. The science and the data is now catching up that adding nature into the landscape improves its productivity, resilience and outputs. One of the things really, I think, sort of excites me, but probably people disagree, is the increased costs of inputs. It's really focusing people's minds on actually moving away, or how do others doing it. And events like this, and going to some more organic events, they are doing things differently. They are building systems that reduce costs, reduce inputs, moving away from fossil fuels. So while it's very painful for many, I think it's a real opportunity to focus minds around the opportunity of then doing something different. And then looking at the unintended consequences of those inputs on our biodiversity, on our food systems, our quality of produce that we produce. So it helps people go on that journey to think about. And the attendance here today really sort of makes people, makes clear that other people really want to do something different. One of the other things I think really seen through COVID and through my work through the Nature Friendly Farming Network, which I'm the UK chair, is seen through the COVID, people wanted to find their food. They couldn't find it on a supermarket shelf. They got scared. And they're reaching out to farmers, and they know end of people are now buying direct or really interested in their food products. And I think that's a real great opportunity as farmers. We must be out there communicating how their food is produced, what the kind of journey it's come on, what kind of landscape it's been in, how short can that be, and how many people now are connecting with farmers that are producing a variety of wheat that can go direct into a mill or for home baking or other produce, and connecting and shorten it. And then we can really tell the stories as farmers how we're farming and why it may be different to other production systems that aren't so healthy for the environment and a healthy food product. Well, I think it sort of kind of excites me, but it has a taint to it if you're not careful, is the market recognition now. We're seeing a lot of big brands now recognising regenerative systems or their corporate responsibility for nature and carbon within the landscape they need to account for, and they want to purchase from systems that are doing the right thing. But always when corporates get involved, it's about for shareholders, not always about the farmer and the produce that then gets produced. And that's where I'm always having a caveat of really good to see the recognition and seeing some of these brands focus around their procurement and where it comes from and trying to shorten those chains, and also highlighting the farmers that are done. So there's huge opportunity there and positivity, but we just have to be a little bit cautious. I pick up on a point around the food production and food security. The narrative that's pumped around that we have to be scared around food security and food production. But the reality is we produce more than just food on farms. We do biodiversity, water capture and public goods and everything else. And we need support in delivering a range of it that leaves a healthy landscape to produce healthy food in the future. And if you really look and want to be honest about the amount of food we produce is quite small compared with all the other stuff we produce. We produce green energy and biofuels and bioenergy and solar panels, and as citizens we're wasting 40% of what we produce. Huge waste of resource. But I do think that opportunity of coming into the space around food production and food security, but looking at the whole system in the future. And the other bit I'll touch on is the Nature Friendly Farming Network. Having the opportunity as UK chair, travelling across the whole of the UK, talking to farmers, seeing farmers, doing inspirational things, changing their production systems, connecting with consumers, welcoming public on farms. We have such a positive story to say. And actually, it's how do we work with organisations to make the consumer, the supply chain, citizens do that. And that lifts me most days, just hearing the stories of what doing. There is trouble and it's hard out there sometimes, a lot of times, but there is inspirational within farmers, and we need those voices being heard to inspire others. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. A quick round of applause for our two speakers. Thank you. And some of the things you've heard there, as I said before, you might agree with or disagree with, and that's completely fine. Some of them are double-edged swords about rising costs and who can afford and all that. We know that these things are complicated, but some great thoughts from both of our speakers there. For those that have just joined, we're now going to get you to go into groups. So the whole purpose of this, if you just joined, is it's a discussion about what excites you about farming. That's a simple question. So what is the good stuff that's happening that you're seeing at the moment in farming in the UK or wherever you're operating? And if you run out of things to say in your group, how could we encourage? What can be done to encourage more of that good stuff to flourish? So it's what's the good stuff, and how can you encourage more of it to flourish? So go for it. And our two panelists will come down and join a group as well. So 20-25 minutes. What's exciting you about farming? So yeah, thank you for participating. What we're going to do, there is a roving mic which will go around. I'm just going to go around. I'm not going to get you to share all your discussions. You'll be glad to know, or even kind of formally report back. But I just want to go around and again, just if there's one thing either that you heard in your group, it might have been something you said, or it might have been something you heard that you think, oh, that's that's particularly exciting or surprising. I'd just love to be able to capture. I might scribble down, and got colleagues scribble down as well, kind of half a dozen things that are exciting about farming. We might do a little mini blog or share on social media or something. We're not going to attribute anything, but would love to just be able to capture a few positive snippets to, while the sun is still shining. Is there anyone in this group wants to give them the mics over there that wants to share something that they found exciting, surprising? And keep it fairly succinct if possible, because we want to hear from everyone.
Hello. So we talked about mostly a lot of hope. We talked about the aspect of how we bring generations together to talk about the problem without distancing the conversation. The fact that we're sort of all right in what we do. So you don't want to barrier and close the conversation off. You want to kind of continue it. We also talked about the end point of how do we take the conversation forward as a bunch of people that have all come together for a day and 2 days, and in 2 weeks' time we might have forgotten a little bit of what we thought about, and that burn may have gone. So how do we continue that? We had some great conversation about diversity and inclusion in relation to people of colour coming into farming, and what are we doing to support that and nurture it, and so on. What else did we have, people? Oh yeah, environment and climate. There's a distance between those two sectors, and how farming and environment, and how do we make sure we bring those two together, and both ends are kind of shouting at the other one and throwing cow dung or something, I don't know. What would be appropriate?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Amazing. That was, and again, for other groups, you don't have to summarise everything that's said, but that was a really, really nice summary. Thank you. I'm not going to bring the panelists on everything, but just on that, I guess the second point about, lots of people being here for the day or 2 days, getting lots of connections, lots of exciting stuff happening, and then 2 weeks' time kind of potentially drifting away. And I guess, is there anything from either of you in terms of networks or communities or that you think are helpful for people in the room may or may not know of them already, or anyone in the room that's got examples of, I guess, ways of staying, of connecting, of sharing stuff going forward? There's lots of networks and things out there, but any that you would particularly kind of recommend, or it might be NFFN perhaps. Go on, Rebecca first.
Well, obviously the Nature Friendly Farming Network is one. You've got a good plug there. If you're interested in livestock, then the Pasture for Life Association is brilliant to be a member of. The forum is outstanding, and from that you'll probably get invited to join at least 10 WhatsApp groups. I think that's what we're up to now, mainly because the cow people got fed up with talking about sheep. So now the sheep people have their own group. It's great. Social media, love it or hate it, is fantastic as a way to follow a hashtag, and then you go down a rabbit hole and find like-minded folks. If you're a farmer and it's just livestock, I go PFLA. Obviously Martin's network and social media, and find a farm you like.
Brilliant. Maybe we should have a permanent kind of hashtag grounds for optimism or something, or some kind of way of people connecting up on positive stuff. Thank you, Rebecca. Martin.
So there's Base UK, if you're an owl, or an owl type kind of farming system. There is lots, and social media and YouTube. There's such great information. And the point, sometimes the people that come here are the really interested ones, who may be the son and daughter, and it's how do they get the information up the family tree what can you take away and show parents and grandparents to transfer that knowledge.
Brilliant, thank you. Good. I want to hear from other groups now. The group that Dan and others are in. I'm not necessarily picking on Dan. Anyone like to share something exciting from that group?
Thanks, Dan. I guess we'll touch on what Martin was saying about people and networks. Peter, is it? Peter from the Land Workers Alliance talking about the amount of people who've approached him today about wanting to get into agriculture. That's definitely changing. I think with social media, it's more open. It used to be a closed shop with just farmers' sons and daughters coming in and taking on. So that's changing. Lots of people from outside of agriculture coming in. So it's a real positive, because we've heard stories as well about the lack of change in farming families that's happening. So we need that outside influence to come in. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dan. And anything you want to say on that? No, we won't come back on everything, but we'll get a chance to. I'm going to again preempt Rebecca and Martin. I'm going to ask them for kind of a closing compelling closing. No. Yeah, exactly. No, just one thing I guess that you want people to go away and take away. What would be a kind of not going to ask that now. Just give you a minute to think while we're hearing from other groups. Group at the back. Anyone wants to share something exciting, some good stuff?
Nominated spokesperson. Okay. Hello, everyone. So it's probably a good thing that actually a lot of the stuff that's already been mentioned came up in discussion in our group as well. So the positive shift into collaborative working and sharing good practices rather than everybody feeling like they're in competition with everybody else and you can't share your good practices in case someone else does them better than you. And how that feeds out into things like farming clusters and forums for sharing guidance on change. Was there anything else new that we came up with that wasn't already discussed? Oh, yeah, thank you. So I kicked us off with a point about something that's reflected today and at other conferences in a recognition that farming is a science and actually evidence-based approaches to doing things better are really well recognised, and there are more and more ways to learn and get recognition for that learning as a well-informed farmer, as well as obviously advisors and consultants and all the other kind of support people that are involved in the industry, and the fact that sustainable and regenerative farming is a science in itself.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, it's a science and a movement and a philosophy and lots of things, which is but very important. Thank you. Maybe if we hear from the group at the front here.
Well, one thing was Vicky was saying that that she was here at the first Groundswell 6 years ago, and that was quite a small affair in the farm buildings, and now here we are. It's enormous. So that's really exciting. And another thing was realise that people are, that sort of building energy and realising the future is about people supporting each other, and in order to survive, maybe even needs to be about small pockets of land and people collaborating and sharing skills and helping to sort of let younger people grow up understanding things and knowing things and sharing knowledge like that way.
That's the thing about training. Yeah, a good trainer that people mentioned. Yeah.
Oh yes. That's what you mentioned that as well, didn't you? That.
Do you want to share that?
Yeah, it was 3LM. Yeah.
3LM.
Yeah, both two people in the group in 3LM.
Brilliant. And for anyone that doesn't know, what does 3LM translate as?
So 3LM is an organisation run by Sheila and Christopher Cook who train in holistic management, and they are who we did our training with in 2020, which I think is fair to say completely saved us, not just because of everything that came after March that year, but just gives you a new way of thinking. It's very easy to find fault in what we do as humans. I think we are designed to do that, but it certainly the training helps you learn that actually you don't have failures, it's just experiments that didn't go quite as you planned. So it actually takes a lot of pressure off, but it's a really good network as well. So if you're interested, you can see Sheila and Christopher at their stand tonight. They're doing late drinks and stuff till 9:30. But the Agrarians Workplace, which is Facebook again, so more social media, love it or hate it, but it's a really good way of connecting with people and getting support.
Brilliant, thank you. And so it's good to have a range of people in the room, quite a broad range of ages and genders and everything. I think it's in this space we're in. I think it's refreshing to see. We're not as diverse a sector as we can and should be, but I think but it's great to hear different voices in the room today. Finally, last group here. Who'd like to? I think Matthew's got a mic.
Yeah, I've been handed the mic. I think we've touched on most things. The positive sort of networking was quite a big one for me personally and the group. And Leon, just as we closed, had a really good one about the positivity of all the free things that we get around rain and sunshine and the opportunities that we have every day.
Yeah. So I didn't hear that. That was the free things we get, as in rain and sun, etc. Is that right? Yes, absolutely. Which we don't always make the most of. Thank you. So I'm going to come to the panel in a minute just for final kind of reflection, or again, it's not what's the answer to all our problems or anything, but any kind of one reflection or one message you want to kind of feedback before we finish. Anyone else that just in the last couple of minutes, anyone else that hasn't had a chance, has got a burning something exciting they want to share, want to do? Otherwise, if not, I will come to our panel. So maybe we start with Martin. Martin, what's your either your one take-home message from today, or something you would encourage people to go and do?
So I'd start. Many of the headlines and the news and the stories out, at our industry are negative, but farmers are finding positive solutions, and it's that getting together online, but also in people, talking is a real positive thing. And we have the solutions in our hands and in our soil, and it's the ability that farmers are waking up to that thing, I think, is a real positive thing. And it's how we communicate that to other farmers. That there's no one path. It's a very diverse system we can deliver, but we all can do a lot more. And it's really exciting to be here and hearing people here and out there sort of looking for answers and happy to ask tough questions and listening to the positive and the negative, the mistakes as well. So I think it's really good.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. Rebecca?
On very similar lines, actually, talking, being open, and listening. Listening's a really hard skill to learn. It's something that we've tried to do over the last few years. Listening to new ideas and actually being receptive to those and open to the fact that everyone does things differently, and sharing information seems to be the most key thing. We have a very open farm, and I wish other farmers could feel as free to be as open. So that is probably, talk, listen, be open.
Brilliant, thank you. And just on talking, and I promise I'll stop talking in a moment, but Helen Browning, who was involved with Food Ethics Council for a long time, was our chair. When she stepped down last year on our council, she talked about how people often talk of talking shops in a kind of derogatory way, and I get that, because we need action, but actually the power of talking and actually coming together is hugely underrated, I think, and can provoke and inspire lots of positive stuff. So hopefully you've had enjoyed getting to meet some people perhaps you haven't met before, hear from our two great speakers, and just soak up a bit of the groundswell atmosphere and the positivity. I think there's, as I said right at the beginning, for those that weren't here, we're not ignoring the huge challenges out there, and I haven't even mentioned the government food strategy. I nearly got through it without mentioning that, which I won't do now. But no, in all seriousness, we know that the policy landscape, the funding landscape, the environmental landscape, a lot of it is tough, but and it's I think there's some positive stories we can tell. Some of it is just connecting up better with each other. So thank you for joining today. Enjoy the rest of Groundswell, and hopefully see you again at Groundswell next year. Thank you.